So anyway, it's obviously pretty dark in here because you can't see me in the camera, but that's okay. You guys don't want to look at me anyway. So what we did is we just looked at some optical illusions. Well, that is just kind of an introduction. We're going to talk about color and waves. Looking at these, the waves, light waves are what allow us to see color. So for us to understand color theory and how we see color and how we mix paint and stuff like that, we have to understand a little bit about waves. So we're going to start out with that. A wave is nothing more than a disturbance. And it's a disturbance that travels through space. Some waves require a medium, and some don't require one at all. Mechanical waves require a medium of some sort. What a medium is some sort of material to pass through, like a water ripple. Yeah, you take your finger in the water and you tap it, it's going to send a ripple through it. The water is the medium of that wave. That wave is a disturbance in the water. Your finger disturbed the water at that point. That disturbance moved out from your finger. Sound requires a medium. It's the air itself. Sound is just the air particles bouncing off of each other, basically. Light does not require a medium. Now, it can pass through a medium. It can pass through air. It can pass through glass. It can pass through water. But it can actually go through the void, the vacuum that is space as well. But when it's going through a medium, it can alter the speed at which it moves. I don't know if you've ever stuck your head under water in the bathtub, turn on the radio or whatever, and listen to the music, then stick your head under the water, the pitch changes, the tone of the music changes. And that's because the sound is going through the water. It's now the vibrating water particles instead of air particles, and it changes the quality of the sound. It's really kind of weird. In fact, the more dense the medium is, as long as it's not too rigid for the sound to pass through it, the more dense it is, the louder, the more intense the sound is. Here, we'll do this. I'll tap my finger on the table and you can hear it tap. In fact, I'll tap something a little harder on the table. Let's do you can hear me tap that, right? Now put your ear down on the table. Quite different, right? You've seen some of the old cowboy movies where the guy puts his ear down to the ground and you hear horses coming a mile away. There's actually some truth to that. The sound in the ground, because the ground's more dense than air, will actually travel further and louder, more intense. Because they're closer together, exactly. So, we have a mechanical wave, which we talked about. In a mechanical wave, sound is a form of mechanical wave. The water we saw was a mechanical wave. And mechanical waves require that medium, and it requires particles within that medium to actually move. Now, the mechanical wave can be one of two types. It can be called a transverse wave, or it can be a longitudinal wave. Longitudinal means the disturbance or the motion of particles is the same direction as the motion of the wave. Now remember, the wave is a disturbance. It's not necessarily the motion of the particles itself. It's the motion of that disturbance moving through the medium. A longitudinal wave, I'm going to pause this here and look up again. You can see what happens when your vocal cords vibrate. It causes the air to either compress together or expand apart. So here you've got low pressure and high pressure, and that's what your ear is actually detecting, is that changing in pressure. Low pressure causes your eardrum to pull out. High pressure causes it to push in. That's why when you fly, sometimes your ears will pop. As you get up to higher altitude, the pressure drops slightly, and it moves your eardrum and it puts pressure on it. It's like, sticking a finger in the side of your face like this and pushing on it. Well, if your eardrum pops a little bit, that lets the air go through and equalizes the pressure. And it can hurt a little bit, but it also takes that pressure off. It's like pulling the finger out of your cheek. I don't know if this one will actually do a wave ripple. No, it won't. It said there was applets here, but they lied. Here. So you can see here now his foot's going to come down, and they've got it like super slow motion here, don't they? Come on. Here we go. Let's get to the punch. His feet, when he comes down quickly, it acts like a solid and it doesn't let his feet sink in. He can run across it. And you see it's not even sticking to his feet at all. That's cornstarch and water again. What's that? It's just the mixture. There's several other non-Newtonian fluids that you can do. So I'm trying here. Walking on water. No, no, no. So you can see there, you can actually see the thing as they punch it. Here. See how long this one is.
Okay, so I can move around, but if I punch it, we can set objects on it that are normal.
Starch and water again as well. Yeah, it looks like it's a solid dancing around, but you shut off the music and it's just a puddle. That's something to try at home for a party. Get some, yeah. There you go. Now make sure you get the saran wrap stretched over it real good. And they just go through the steps they went through here. This is different frequencies. If you have a little bit slower frequency, it really looks weird. There, it's not enough to make it dance, but it's enough to make it solidify. Yeah, it kind of does. You just have to have enough power behind it, is all. That's a high amplitude just means it's got to be loud enough. And he's got a wave generator here. Instead of just playing music, he's actually using a wave generator. So different types of waves will give you different forms. Probably. Or just something with a lot of bass in it, and probably do it. You can see there he's actually able to pick it up. I mean, it's solid. But otherwise, when he shuts off the music, it's just a puddle. Yeah, you got a pretty thick batch. It'll basically be the consistency of like the paste that Diamond used to eat when he was a kid. That's on too high of a frequency. So it just stays liquid. Oh, now you're getting an interference pattern in it if you get a high enough frequency. You actually get like rings and stuff to form in it. So anyway, you can see that the longitudinal waves, we got a little sidetracked with the non-Newtonian fluids there, but longitudinal waves are basically, you can think of them as the air particles having their natural spacing when they're just floating in the air under regular atmospheric pressure. But when you speak, or a speaker causes that vibration, it causes them to get squeezed together in parts and stretched apart in others, so that the high and low pressure causes the eardrum to go in and out.
So higher pressure is the higher pitch.
Yeah, well, the pitch is actually the rate between with the high and low pressure. The faster you go from high pressure to low pressure, the higher pitch it is. So like here, this is probably a fairly low pitch. This would be a little bit higher pitch because the high pressure areas are closer together. Because you're going back and forth faster. I think your speaker, the faster it vibrates, the higher pitch sound it makes. The slower it vibrates, the more bass it is. Similar, I mean, it's alternating current is what allows the magnets in the speaker to do what they need to do. A transverse wave, the motion of the particles is perpendicular to the motion of the wave. Remember, perpendicular means at a right angle. So I know I've got an applet for this one. If it'll open. So here's my wave on a string applet. I can grab the wrench, wiggle it up and down. I send a wave pulse down it. Now I'm going to turn off dampening here. Dampening 0. So I send a pulse there and it bounces back. That's a longitudinal wave. You can see this green dot here does not move side to side. It looks like it does, but it doesn't. That green dot moves up and down, up and down. So the particles are moving up and down, but the wave is moving side to side. The motion of the particles is perpendicular to the motion of the disturbance of the wave. So we're going to stop this and we're going to make a single pulse right now. You can see that gives us that nice, perfectly formed little wave. I send another pulse. What do you see happens when the two pulses hit? They actually don't bounce back. This pulse keeps going, but for a second, because one's right side up and one's upside down, they cancel each other out and disappear, and it reappears on the other side. It looks like they bounce off each other, but this wave here still keeps going. It just disappears for a second. Disappears and keeps going. Disappears and keeps going. Disappears and keeps going.
There's something like that when we're setting up PA speakers pointing at each other.
You get you have nodes and antinodes. There'll be spots where it's extremely loud and other spots where you can't hear it at all. Where the waves, here, this would be an antinode where the waves cancel each other out. If you were standing right there where the two waves always collide, you wouldn't hear anything because the sound would cancel itself out. Let's pulse. Okay, I'm going to do this loose end. Now you notice here when there was a fixed end, when I sent a pulse, it hit the fixed end and it bounced back upside down, right? It's a loose end and I send a pulse, it bounces back right side up. Now this is still a fixed end, so it bounces back upside down there. I time this right. What happens now when the two waves hit when they're both in the same direction? They get really big for a second. They build to make one big wave, and then they continue on past each other. That's called the principle of superposition. Yep, and they do that with acoustics, where there's an amphitheater. They try to do it just the backwards of that, where the people are standing and speaking is at that center spot. So it has the reverse. If somebody speaks at that spot, the sound travels through the room really well too. So when they design theaters, they try to do that. So the spot is on stage where someone is speaking, even in a relatively normal tone of voice, the sound travels really well through the rest of the room and it bounces out. So that superposition means the waves can either cancel each other out if they're opposite, or they can build onto each other and add together. And we were talking about the nodes and antinodes. Let's say you've got the waves coming out, because if you have a point here, the waves are going to come out in circles like this. Let's say you've got another sound source, you're talking about the PAs over here. Well, where the waves are both strong right here, it's going to be really, really loud. But here where the one wave's strong and the other wave's weak, they cancel each other out. This would be the positive spot of the green wave, but the negative spot on the blue wave, they cancel each other out and there's no sound there. So someone standing there thinks it's really quiet.
So like when you're doing a home entertainment speakers.
Positioning, yes. The Oval Office is actually built based on that. Because of the acoustics, the president's desk sits at what's called one focal point of the Oval Office. So his chair would be right here. Sound that comes out, anything that he says there bounces off and goes through the other focal point of the oval. So if you're sitting over here, anything the president says is going to be really, really loud. That's an extreme node of sound, because all the things bounce off and hit there. Well, that's not necessarily a good thing that people can hear the president, but when they're having negotiations and they have foreign dignitaries in, they have them sit right here. So anything they say bounces directly to where the president's sitting. Yeah. Exactly. You can pick on what they're whispering to each other. If the president wants to say something to one of his aides, he should slide over to the corner and whisper to him instead of sitting right at his. Yep.
So when was the room made?
That was made in the 1800s.
Really? They thought about that?
Because the White House was burnt down during the War of 1812 and remodeled. That was put in the 1830s or 1840s, I believe that was done that way.
Did they do that? They never did that?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, getting stupefied by them their smartphones and electronic devices. Actually, I read something on that about everybody staring at their electronic devices and the stuff going on around them. And I actually saw what. Okay, so we've got these waves that they can move, and we saw the applet there and some of the things it does. And we could actually do. I can pause that, and I can make it oscillate like this. When it's oscillating, you get more of a rounded wave. So you can see here the waves will amplify at times. Now, the reason that this is doing what it is, how it's starting to get big and then it gets small, it's called dampening when it gets small and building when it gets large. It's because the frequency is set wrong. If I change the frequency, well, there I really got the frequency screwed up. So you can see it can actually go out of control. What I just hit there is something called a resonant frequency. It's causing this thing to amplify out of control. Not only important when dealing with sound, but it's important in physics. So you can see here, they almost appear to stand still at that frequency. I'll put a second resonant frequency there. Why is that resonant frequency so important? Well, I can get to this.
What's happening when it shows it kind of looks like it's breaking?
Well, that's just a problem with the applet. I don't know what happens there. It is going, higher and lower amplitude because of the interference. But the applet itself has some breaks in it too. Of course, this thing's going to be a problem. I don't know what's going on with my computer today, but it's making me angry. I'm sure it's going to send me to YouTube. I should probably just go to YouTube. Yeah. Here it is. This is the one I was looking for. This video is famous trying to find the one I really want. But we'll do this one first. See if it's the one I want. It's Coleman Narrows Bridge. Yeah, you saw with that wave there when we set it at the right frequency, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was just flying way off the page. This here was wind blowing. Suspension bridges are meant to actually sway in the wind. This one here, the resonant frequency when it was designed was incorrect. So the wind gusts were actually able to hit that resonant frequency, and it started flopping, and it just kept flopping more and more and more. And that's actually steel and concrete across there. And it is flopping like a wet noodle right about now. What's that? Oh, there's a car on there. There's actually one of the videos shows a guy who was out driving across the bridge when it started to happen, who got out of his car and ran for it. Nobody was killed. It took long enough for it to collapse. You can see the car there getting tossed around. Would that not freak you out, though, starting to drive across the bridge and feeling the bridge start to flop?
It's crazy.
Yeah. Once it starts to bust up, you'll actually see it really is concrete. You know? That's actually the steel itself, and the supports moving back and forth, and the cables. It went on for about 15 or 20 minutes before it fell. You can see the street lights there going back and forth. Here's the part where the guy actually is getting out of his car. He got out of his car and ran for it, then realized his dog was still in his car. Turned around and went back for it. One of the videos I saw, it's just hilarious to watch the guy trying to run. It's the street lights going back and forth is what really does it for me, though. Yeah, there he's coming. I assure you he is totally sober. What's that? No, I didn't see the dog. And then this is where it starts to fall apart. Oh, that was a little further than I wanted to. I guess they really don't show it starting to break up. But those are people walking out there to check out the damage. I really don't think I would ever walk out on a bridge that was half collapsed. Yeah, it's kind of my... Yeah. Well, that doesn't mean there isn't a special kind of stupid for him, too. So, anyway, that's that resonant frequency that we talked about. That, just you get the right frequency, just build and build and build out of control. The wind gusts, yeah, the vibration of the wind, of the particles from the wind blowing on it, that caused it to do that.
So it started the frequency
Yeah. It just as the wind kept hitting it, it just kept building. Most of them are designed so that the easiest way to describe it is like a skyscraper. Skyscrapers are designed to have specific resonant frequencies. So let's say you have a wind gust that blows here, right? And this causes the skyscraper to lean a little bit away. The top of a skyscraper will actually move, depending on how tall it is, usually like 12 or 15 feet in the wind. So let's say it blows, and of course what's going to happen once it blows back, it's going to come forward. Because the wind will blow and release. Blow. I mean, there's no such thing as just a perfectly steady, strong wind. There's always those little gusts in it. Well, if it blows and releases, well, if the wind gusts right now, right when it's at its maximum and it's starting to go back the other way, it's going to cause it to go back even further. So if those gusts are, it's just like pushing a kid on a swing. You keep pushing as they're moving away from you, they go higher and higher. Well, if you push them, they go away, and as they're coming back, you push them again, it's going to slow them down. That's what they try to do with a building or a bridge or something. They try to get it to the wind gusts, it sways away. Well, as it's coming back, the wind gusts again and slows it down. Instead of, okay, it sways away, it sways back, and as it's starting to sway away again, the wind hits it again. That's going to magnify it. That's resonating with it, and we don't want it to resonate. So they control, by using the types of materials, the types of structures in the building, they control that resonant frequency so it moves slow enough that the wind gusts again before it comes back, and it slows down the movement. Now, another thing they do in really tall skyscrapers, is that's kind of cool, is they have large fluid reservoirs. So they have a large tank here and a large tank here all around the edges of the building. And they'll have pipes going between them. So what will happen is when the wind blows and the building moves this way, let's say the water level is right there, right? When the building moves this way, the water wants to stay still. So the water is going to stay where it is. So this tank will get lower and this tank will get fuller. The water will stay where it is as the building moves. That keeps the building from moving as much. Let's see if there's a YouTube video out there for that too. Let me see if I can find it.
What about like tsunamis knocking the intensifiers? It seems like it does close to
What that is the depth of the water. The shallower the water is, the larger the wave is. Most shorelines have a shelf where the beach, it comes out and it slopes gradually, and then it hits a spot and it starts to drop off really quickly. So you look out, and that's why tsunamis are so dangerous, is that it doesn't look like much of a wave coming in. And as the water gets shallower and shallower, it's a little bit bigger, but then it hits that shelf, and all of a sudden the water goes from deep, really deep to really shallow, and the wave gets huge all of a sudden. And that's where the tsunami really surprises people, is because of that.
Normally stay going just because they have that roll.
Yeah.
That's what keeps going.
That undertow, that's, yep. So there's a good one here. Okay, I searched it wrong. We'll just do dampened harmonic motion. Problem is, I know exactly what video I'm looking for. I just don't know what it's called. See if that does it. Well, apparently it just wants me to look at a lecture. That one's not it. We'll check that one out just because it looks cool anyway. So you can see these. We'll wait a second here. Turn the sound on, maybe.
Or at the base of the towers, and it's the inertial forces of the tower itself which wants to make it stay in place. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an earthquake load. We're going to simulate an earthquake load at the base.
So they're simulating an earthquake here is what they're doing. They're vibrating the base, and you can see how that starts to wiggle and wobble real bad there.
It will stop this now.
Especially when the earthquake hits that resonant frequency. So now they're going to put this dampening system. That's just basically a thing of water, is all that is. And they've put it on there.
What kind of effect it has on the stability of the tower.
You can see that that one hardly moves at all. Oh, that's they're using actually just a battery in there, so it's loose instead of water. But you get the picture. That's that having that thing that can stay still instead of moving with the building causes it to dampen. So a lot of people think, well, those water and it's usually not water, it's usually some sort of hydraulic, non-corrosive hydraulic fluid, so it'll last for a long time.
Does have it.
They think, well, that doesn't do much, so you can see how huge of an effect it does having just that simple dampening system in.
Forces on your lateral, you can get away with a smaller core.
That's for me today. So anyway, that's the resonant frequency. And it's really significant, as you saw in that video, that it's quite a interesting effect it can have. So anyway, there's some things we want to do with our waves. One that you're probably most familiar with, if you have a wave coming into a surface, it will bounce off. If you played around with a mirror at all, you've dealt with this. It's called reflection. And you know that the angle at which the wave comes in will be the same angle at which it bounces off. And technically, they measure it off what's called the normal. They come here perpendicular to the surface. It's this angle and this angle that are supposed to be the same, while these two angles will be the same as well. But it comes in and bounces off of that same angle. Refraction is bending of light as it goes from one material into another. For example, let's say this is a piece of glass. And you got a light beam coming in here. Now light, actually, the spectrum of light, it starts with red, orange, yellow. I'm just going to go red, yellow, green, purple. I don't want to go through all 7 colors or all 6 colors, but you've got the colors coming in. When they hit it, they tend to bend. You're going from a low density medium like air into a higher density medium like glass, and they tend to bend. But the different colors tend to bend at different rates. Red does not bend as much. Yellow bends a little bit more. Green, more yet. And purple, more yet. Well, that causes those colors to separate. I actually have a spectrum down in the other classroom that we'll set up on Monday, and I've got a full spectrum light that we'll turn on. And we'll use that, or not spectrum, a prism, and we'll use that prism to try to separate the light in that, to separate it into the different colors. And you get that pure white light will become red, yellow, or red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. That's from the Pink Floyd album. Well, the Pink Floyd album is from that, is what it is.
They have lights separating on that though, or
Yep.
they're going straight?
I believe they're separating on that. Yep. They're coming into the triangular prism. This is also why, by the way, if you've ever taken like a tank of water, put a penny in the bottom. Now, if you're standing off at the side watching this, you can see it perfectly. But if you have someone like standing here looking at it, trying to stab that penny with a stick, they're going to miss it every time. Why? Well, because the light from that penny is coming up out of the water. When it hits the air is a lower density, so it's going to bend like that. So what they're seeing, they think the penny's over here when it's really down here. They're going to overshoot the penny every time. Anybody, well, no offense, Diamond, just kidding. You ever watch the movie, that Survivor, Castaway? You saw him trying to spear fish. It was, the first few times he missed horribly. If you ever watch any of the survival shows where they do that, it's really difficult to do because unless you're looking straight down into the surface of the water above the fish, if you're looking at any angle at all, this is what's going to happen. You're going to miss. You're going to overshoot because of the bend. So you've got to learn how to compensate for the depth of the water. So here's my fish. I've got to aim down here because the water's this deep. Or if it's deeper, you got to aim down here so you actually hit the fish. Does that make sense?
It just makes me think about people, surviving when they first started
Yep.
Probably the best is to submerge your head and then try to
Yeah. That'd probably be an easier way to go about it. You're right. If it was deep enough water that you could do that.
Can you just take a ruler like that and just see,
Oh, yeah.
down here, it'll be like,
Or you stick it in and you look at it and it actually appears to be bent right at the surface of the water. Diffraction or diffraction is light's still bending but not changing mediums. It's going around the edge of an object. So if I send a wave in here, a ripple in here, and it hits the edge of the object, what happens is this part of the wave here will keep going. But here it's going to bend around the edge like this. Now it's going to be a lot less strong. It's going to be a lot less intense than what it was before. But this is going to act almost like a new source of a wave. This is, they call diffraction gratings, where they got like a bunch of little slits, and the light goes through, and at the edge of those slits, light bends. And that's what I actually have right here. This is a diffraction, a spectrometer, has a diffraction grating in it. And what it does is the light goes through that diffraction grating, and, come on. Wow. And as it goes through that diffraction grating, the light bends, and it separates into the different colors. So I'm going to have you guys do right now, I'm going to pause. Photoshop, you will have the perfect full spectrum color corrective lights, because, yep. Yep. Yeah, because, I mean, an old auto body man will tell you, always do paint comparisons outside in the bright sunlight. Because the old fluorescent lights were horrible. I mean, you could have two panels next to each other that looked exactly the same in the fluorescence. Get them out in the sun, and one's like red compared to the other one being blue. Yeah. Okay, that's enough.